The MMO genre is dead. The MMO genre is dead to me. Fuck. We had a good run, guys. It's over.
I've found myself hopping from game to game trying to find what it was that made me a lifelong MMORPG addict. It's probably not the healthiest mindset, but
no.
I'm still chasing that fix. I started playing back in 1997, playing all...
You're never going to have it. You're never going to have it. It's not going to happen again. Because what you really are looking for is 1997, I think. I think, yes, obviously you'll have games that remind you of it, but it will never be the same.
From online, and I tried pretty much everything from then until now, sometimes even finding a home for thousands of hours, but more likely a fleeting experience. The MMORPG genre has been headed down a dark path now for over a decade, and you know what else is dark? Today's sponsor, Dark Nemesis Infinite Quest. Do you have what it takes to be a peacekeeper of the multiverse? Find out today with the link in the video description and join the battle against threatening bosses from different worlds. Take on the hordes of enemies as one of 4 classes: warrior, assassin, mage, or gunslinger. Each with unique skills and aesthetics. If you're out on the move and need a game to jump into within minutes, no problem. You can play this from anywhere, like here, or even outside your house. I, of course, can't get footage of me doing that because I'm not allowed to leave. I have to stay here and make YouTube content, and my yard time is limited to a few minutes each day. But you could do it on your commute, at work, on your boss's time, when your waifu drags you to the pillow store, literally anywhere. There is exciting PvP, including a battle royale mode, as well as 5v5 and 10 versus 10 if that's more your speed. Incredible. And of course a ton of PvE content. So join the battle for free using the link in the video description. Use the gift code to get some goodies in game.
You know how I can judge if a phone game is good or not? Is how much of the game is a cinematic and how much of the game is a game that you can actually play. And like if the ad is primarily cinematics, it's because the game sucks.
And check out their event where you can win prizes for making your own video. Do all that, and maybe I'll be allowed outside today. Thank you very much to Dark Nemesis for sponsoring this video, and back to the content. I played a recently released MMO that really hooked me for a couple of weeks.
New World.
Lost Ark. Sadly, that same MMO made me realize that what I'm looking for in this genre is gone. It's dead, and it's buried, replaced with something almost unrecognizable. This experience sent me on a real deep introspection regarding the genre's...
This guy telling me that Lost Ark gave him a midlife crisis. Lost Ark gave Kira a midlife crisis. Oh my god.
Current state, and more importantly, my place within it. I had some long conversations with my friends and my brother, who are also long-term MMO fans. They've been there with me for a lot of these years. And most of what was said was agreed upon wholeheartedly by each one of us. The genre just isn't for us anymore, and it's unlikely to ever be again. Now, I just want to outline that this is not...
That's because us isn't... I'm going to say this again, right? Because I think us isn't us. And it's not the genre. The genre has changed in a lot of ways. But New World didn't have any microtransactions. It's got nothing to do with the profit structure of Lost Ark. There's plenty of games that don't have that problem that people still aren't playing. It's that us changed, not the games. The world changed.
Not me giving up on the genre. I'm not the most jaded human being in the world, I don't think, or that I'm saying you're wrong if you like current MMOs or a current MMO, or if you find fun in the genre, because I'm glad that you do. I wish I did as well. The genre is inarguably more popular than it's ever been, and it has more popular games across the board than it did when I would have considered it the genre for me.
It's crazy to think that, like, you think about MMOs 2.5 years ago. Like, whenever I first started streaming, there were no other good MMOs really out besides, like, maybe RuneScape. That was about it. And, like, now there are so many other games. That's great.
That means more people having fun, and clearly that's why we are where we are today, and that's where we should be, because that's what games are for people to enjoy them and to have fun. I do, however, think that the original spirit, the original vision of what the MMO acronym used to mean is just not the same. The way I would describe it is that there's some great games in the MMORPG genre. They're just not great MMORPGs. And part of that might come from me. Part of it might come from my nostalgia, my change of lifestyle, my change of perspective over the years.
That's my opinion.
But I do think there are examples you can give that do hold water when discussing how the games are just designed differently, and thus fundamentally going to change the experience you have and how they feel to play. Now, as for why Lost Ark sent me on this quest, I was truly enjoying the game. I was playing 8 to 12 hours a day, and it's sincerely been a while since I've had that in an MMO. I was even...
Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing. I still have fun playing the game. Like, I still play the game all the time. Like, I like playing these games. I think that, like, the big way for me, like, because for the longest time, I worry about, like, investing time into something that I feel is fleeting. And now I think that, like, anytime that I invest and I'm having fun and I'm doing something that I want to do, I consider that objectively my enjoyment rather than, you know, trying to work towards this big goal that is, you know, like this big thing, right? Everything's fleeting. Like, trying to look at things that are just fun, right? That's why I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm thinking about playing maybe Fortnite and then maybe play PUBG and Lost Ark and whatever, right? Just play what you want to play. Because I think people try to attach themselves too much to, like, playing certain specific things.
Neglecting work to play. However, each day, I just found something else that bothered me about the experience. Each day, something I was doing was grating at me and wearing me down until I just stopped logging on. It wasn't like there was a specific moment where I was like, yeah, this sucks, I don't want to play anymore. I didn't make a conscious decision to stop. It was just a progressive distaste for how the game made me feel. The way I would probably describe that is the slow decline of the willpower I had to try and ignore the issues that I was noticing.
Bro, BDO's combat was so cool. Like, it was so fucking cool. It actually makes me want to go back and play BDO again, straight up.
Just so I could enjoy the few things that were hooking me into the game. And as soon as I saw behind the veil of what was hooking me, that was it. I just couldn't stop noticing it anymore. Talking specifics for Lost Ark, the game has a lot of good points. In fact, I'd go as far to say as it's one of the most feature-complete MMOs we've seen released in recent years. And in terms of how much
that is one thing you can say. Even if you don't like Lost Ark, at least it's finished.
There is. It's pretty unparalleled in the market. I can definitely see why this game has appealed to such a wide audience of people, including myself, because there's just so much stuff to do, specifically as well the horizontal content. The combat's really fun, and of course the game's flashy. It just feels good in that brainless kind of way that ARPGs make you feel, as well as there being content that makes you think as well, so you can really step into the lane of what you want to do as you want to do it. However, some of the core systems just remind me of how much more fun I used to have when the treadmill wasn't so blatant. For example, Lost Ark's...
I feel like, do you think that the treadmill wasn't so blatant? Or do you think that you weren't as introspective? And this is a question because, like, nowadays, like, we've seen these games so many times, and we have, like, vocabulary to identify these problems, etc. Because, like, true, but I guess the best example I can do is, like, I can look back at Classic WoW, and it's so obvious what the treadmill for the game was. And it's just that players didn't perceive it that way back then because people didn't commodify game experiences in the same ways. And they also didn't play games the same ways in general. We evolve faster than games can. Yeah, I think it's also that people now are able to identify these things.
Core gearing system is one of the most unfun systems I've ever interacted with. And it makes the positive of progression-based tiers that are prevalent throughout the game's lifespan just feel worse than they really should. And now what do I mean by progression-based tiers? It's basically when a player must go through tier 1 to get to tier 2, and then through tier 2 to get to tier 3, and so on. Basically, this stops them cannibalizing their own content, for an example of...
I think that's also because players nowadays, I've said this many times, players nowadays are infinitely more goal-oriented. Because players now are consuming content from high-end players, like they're watching people on like YouTube or Twitch, and they're watching what they're doing. And so like they constantly have to get to the next level, and games are no longer seen as an experience. They're seen as as something to be consumed. Like you have to beat the game. Like there's a focus on beating the game.
Cannibalizing content, I would give you skip mechanics like in Retail World of Warcraft, where essentially they release a new patch and it invalidates what was in the previous patches because it allows you to catch up without doing that content. It essentially gives you less of a game to play, and they just want everyone on the same footing. Now, using that same comparison but of older WoW, and why Lost Ark feels worse in the way that it does this, despite it being kind of similar with you going through the tiers instead of skipping them. In old WoW, you'd work for something for quite a while, and then when you got it, when you achieved it, it would feel valuable and you would feel fulfilled, and then moving to the next tier, didn't instantly devalue all the things you'd done previously, because you still had that stuff and it was still useful for quite a while until you got new stuff. Essentially,
that was one of the coolest things about Burning Crusade. By the way, this cinematic right here, this part was why I rolled a mage. Like, this cinematic exactly right here, I saw this and I'm like, I'm gonna play a mage. That's all there was to it. That was my first character in WoW ever, and it was that and Fax Monkey videos. And like, a big reason why that is, I think, is that people just want to have a goal. They want to work towards a goal. They want to succeed at something. And yeah, I get us every time. I know I do. I know. But that's the right way to do it. And that's what I don't even remember why I was even saying it. TBC invalidated vanilla, though. TBC did invalidate vanilla, but if you had Nax gear, you could use that in Karazhan, and I thought that was really cool. And if you had Karazhan gear, whenever whenever Tempest Keep or Serpentine Caverns came out, you could do that raid. And then if you had Serpentine Caverns or Tempest Keep gear, you could go and do Black Temple. So it was something that compounded on itself. It was like you wanted to reach the next level because the next level allowed you to reach the next level. Whereas now the same level just happens over and over and over. It didn't invalidate everything. It pretty much did for the end game. Like, it really pretty much did. Like, you're going to tell me, like, Saffron enchant on shoulders? Like, no, man.
It was a much more long form of progression where you were getting things slowly, so when you did get something, it really felt meaningful. In Lost Ark, however, everything's 0 to 100. You go from no gear when you hit level 50 to being in the first tier of gear and upgrading all your stuff really quickly, and then that gear is easily enhanced, and then it gets harder and harder while also getting better quality, and you're trying to get the right stats for your class until you hit an artificial barrier of RNG, which you can then surpass with grinding for more hours daily on alts or spending real-life money until you overcome said barrier. Now, this obviously isn't bad for everybody. Some people like incremental progression, but for me, it felt more frustrating than rewarding, and I actually think it felt more like a compulsion rather than an achievement. I wasn't
like, the thing is, to me about this is, like, I always wonder, like, what does, like, for example, like, what for, like, Kira, for example, like, what is your best case scenario with progression? Like, what, let me ask you guys, like, what video game had the best character progression that you think? OSRS? I have not played OSRS. Lineage 2, Lost Ark, a lot of people like Lost Ark system, Final Fantasy. Personally, you know what I really liked? I liked Vanilla WoW and Burning Crusade. I like Lost Ark in another way, a very different way. And that's pretty much it. I also liked Vanilla D3. I thought Vanilla D3 was good. But I do think that it's important to have, like, you have to always balance out between, like, having incremental gains versus, like, massive big dick gains. Like, if you ever gotten an item in, like, Diablo 3, like, whenever the game came out and it just, like, completely took you to the next level, it was amazing, right? You get, like, Andariel's Visage and, like, now you're doing 20% more damage. It was fucking insane.
Doing it because I was enjoying it. I was doing it because I just wanted to get the next level. Now, of course, once you overcome that barrier, once you hit the next tier, you literally throw that gear away. Gear that you grinded for each day for dozens of hours, likely even getting the right stats for your class, and you do so for just instantly received higher eye level pieces, and then you restart the cycle all over again, and by the time you get to the end and get the stats that you wanted, you then, you know, throw that gear away and move into the next tier. On top of this, because you know the source for the gear and what the gear looks like and what the gear is, and it's so easy to come by, you're just chasing rarity and then RNG differences in stats and quality. It just didn't ever feel like a fulfilling experience to receive gear, especially knowing that as soon as I moved to the next tier, I'd just be replacing it with a higher eye level anyways, so it was kind of pointless. Of course, this changes once you hit tier 3.
Yeah, it does change a little bit whenever you hit tier 3, and I think all games, it's like there's a certain amount of, like, ultimate futility to it, to a degree, right? Where, like, whenever you're playing these games, there's a certain amount where, at the end of the day, man, you're just playing a game, and eventually you're gonna run out of stuff to do. Like, you're just, like, it's like you finally see... It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? Well, you find out that there's the man behind the curtain, spoilers, by the way, and you can never go back to not seeing that. Like, once you see the, the moving pieces behind the curtain, you can never go back to just playing the game on just just an objective way. Just not objective, but just an experiential way. It's hard. It's weird to analyze Western version of Lost Ark 2 since the bastardized version. Well, I think that we're just talking about games in general.
Because that's the max right now.
I ruined the movie?
But
I know.
You've already at that point spent hundreds of hours in the game. So to bring it back to the overall MMO discussion, you know, back in my day, back in the early days of the genre with games like EverQuest and World of Warcraft, when you received gear upgrades, they were so few and far between that they just felt meaningful. You could notice immediate upgrades to your gameplay, and not just through damage, but also from cosmetics. You looked different, which made it feel like this was substantial. Those two...
I think that's one of the worst things that's happened in gaming recently with MMOs is the fact that, like, all cosmetics pretty much are it's like you just pay money for them. Like, there are very few times where, like, in Classic WoW, for example, you would look cool because you had a, you had a badass item or something like that. And, like, nowadays, that's not really the case anymore. It's like everybody looks cool based off of what they're spending money on. And like that, I don't like that, but it's the problem is that, like, how else are these companies going to make money on, like, making a live service game? So, I've got my plus 20 weapon glow. That's the main thing I have now.
Aspects were huge for me because it was the identity of your character that you were playing and you'd poured hundreds or thousands of hours into, as well as there was, of course, a social aspect around it. And because I play this genre partly for that meaningful progression and the feeling of achieving something and then feeling the fulfillment and the pride over what I'd achieved, when you remove all of that and replace it with a dice roll, that doesn't feel good. So the idea of...
It was always a dice roll. It was always a dice roll. It was just more cleverly hidden. Like, it was always a dice roll. Like, it was like you would kill the boss, and then the boss drops the gear or not. And then if the gear drops, you roll, and it's like, do you win the gear or not? Like, DKP, yeah, sometimes that's the way it goes. Now it feels cheap. It does feel worse, doesn't it? Like, I felt like it felt better whenever you would loot the item from the boss. I do think so. I think that, like, that does have it does have like a core fulfillment to it. But, like, I think it's also a different perspective on it.
Long form, meaningful progression feels like a mechanic that has been steamrolled and streamlined for modern MMOs for the most part.
Yeah.
If I was to compare getting a really good item in Burning Crusade on my Elemental Shaman to the retail WoW experience.
Yeah, you still wouldn't do as much damage as a Warlock, though, or a Hunter, or a Fury Warrior, or a Rogue. But hey, you bring the totem, so you're still in the raid.
Those two feelings are completely different. They're night and day. What makes it even worse is then if you compare the experience of hitting a pen in Black Desert Online or hitting, a low RNG upgrade in Lost Ark, that feels like opening a loot box in CSGO and getting a rare knife skin. The fulfill
100%. It's 100% gambling. Definitely it's gambling. It's not, the thing is like, it's not gambling in the same way that, like, gambling with real money is, because it doesn't matter what your upgrade is. Like, if you put $700 into Lost Ark, you know that you're never getting that money out of the game. So, like, it is different than gambling or CSGO loot boxes, but in a fundamental level, it is a gamble. It is a gamble, and that's all there is to it.
Isn't an achievement, it's gambling. It's just sitting there rolling a dice repeatedly until you get lucky. The way in which you also gather materials to do these things are just checklists. You do X and Y each day to get the trickle of resources, and then you sit down at the table and you roll your dice. If you're lucky, collect your percentage upgrade, and if you're not lucky, come back next time with a higher chance or swipe your credit card for unlimited chances.
Hey, yo, it is what it is. He's been watching the stream. So listen, I felt the same way about Classic WoW. I did BWL. Did it drop? No. Okay, let's do MC. Did I get Thunder Fury? I did. Oh, cool. All right, I'm done. Okay, yeah, I'm done for the week. That's it. Yep, that's it. But could you swipe? Yeah, I mean, you kind of could. But, like, it's just... the money aspect is different. Like, you're definitely right about that. But, like, I guess, like, with... This is, like, a perspective change that I had. And if you go back and you watch my videos from, like, I don't know, 2016 or something like that, like, I would really think, like, dude, like, having somebody with Thunder Fury or something like that was a big deal. But, like, in Classic WoW, everybody fucking had this shit. And not only did everybody fucking have it, but most of the people that did have it had it because they were guild masters. They had it because of guild politics. It's like if you saw somebody who was like a really geared Ret Paladin or a Moonkin, there's like a 90% chance this person is the Guildmaster or an officer in the guild or something like that. Like, this is not impressive to me that you have this gear. It's not amazing. Like, wow, look at this. So it's so hard to, like McConnell, right? McConnell's a great example. McConnell was an officer. McConnell got really good fucking gear. Yeah, it's guild politics, and that's it. So like, I don't really see things with the same level of reverence. Like, is revenant's a word? I don't know, but like, I don't revere these rare items in the same way that I did whenever I was a kid. And why do I not revere them in the same way? I think that revenants, yeah, maybe it is. Is that I don't revere them in the same way is because I know what it takes to get them. So is it players that have changed, or is it me that has gained more knowledge? And I think that yes, it is both. But I think that if you went back and you looked at a lot of the guys that had Thunder Fury in original WoW, it was the same guild politics. It was the same stuff. And we just didn't see it. I think it was like 90% me understanding and 10% players changing. So let me read this here. Sounds a little bit like he's in a midlife crisis, and games don't give him the same feeling of 1997. Completely get that, but the video is unnecessary. I really like watching videos like this because I think they're great conversation points. Like, yeah, I think this is incredibly interesting to talk about. I love talking about this stuff. Last one was the most pay-to-win game ever. Yeah, I know that too. Yeah, absolutely. We stopped being ignorant kids. That's what happened. Yeah, and so like I see these things. And it's the same thing like Lost Ark. Like, it's really cool to see somebody solo a boss. It's like really, really high level, right? Like soloing Velganos. Like that was probably soloing Verdas and soloing Velganos were probably the only two main like fulfilling accomplishments that I've had in Lost Ark. Getting a plus 20 weapon. I mean, like, it's great to have. I'm happy to have it. It's awesome to have it. But, like, I just rolled the dice and I rolled the right number. Wow, that's so crazy, isn't it? Isn't that crazy that I rolled the right number? You know, because you didn't grind for it? No, I felt the same way about a lot of other things, too. Is that, like, a lot of things that I've grinded for in WoW, for example, like, I've farmed out a mount for, like, years, and I finally got the mount, and it's like, okay, cool, I got the mount, I got lucky, it is what it is, right? Like, it's just, there's no, it's just not the same. Yeah, you're just wasting time. Yeah, then it's on to the next one. Yeah, it's just on to the next one.
When I succeed in upgrade in one of these games with these RNG upgrade systems, I don't feel joy.
You don't feel like a
I feel
winner.
Relief, which is weird because what is relief is an emotion. You guys can let me know in the comments, do you see what I'm saying here, or am I just going crazy? And what is relief to you? Do you get that same feeling when you progress in games like this with these RNG upgrades? Because relief for me is a feeling I associate almost entirely with anxiety and things that I'm worried about or not enjoying. I want it to be over, and when I hit that upgrade, that's exactly what I feel. And I only just noticed this. I only connected two and two together very recently with Lost Ark, whereas when I compare it to older games where I felt joy,
that's the way I felt about with bosses and in raiding and WoW, and that's why I quit. That's why I quit, is I never felt good whenever we beat a boss. We would never beat a boss and I would be happy. I would always just be like, oh, thank God we don't have to do this anymore. Like, I would never feel good about it. I would never feel like, oh, wow, this is an accomplishment or whatever. Same reason I quit. Yeah. It's like, I always feel good about whenever it's like kind of like, I felt the same way about Melania. Whenever I beat her in Elden Ring, I hated that boss. It was really annoying because I didn't like that. I didn't like how like one mechanic was like a defining factor of the fight. And it was just annoying to me. But there were some other fights that I did feel better whenever I beat them. But I was also frustrated with myself. Yeah, the bird, for example. Like, yeah, I felt relief whenever I beat the bird. I didn't feel good for beating the bird.
joy is a feeling, of course, that it brings happiness. I used to feel joy when I achieved something in the game, when I got something new with my newly found friends, and we felt that together as a group. I even used to feel joy when I saw somebody else in my group get an item, because I knew that would impact me in the game, because we were playing this game together. We existed in this social space together, and working together as a group was a core feeling of the game. And rarely do I ever feel that those things exist anymore. I don't feel that we're working together as a group. I feel like I'm one person in a game that is full of other individuals. At this point, I don't know if it's me that's changed into a selfish human, but I never care when other people get things because I don't even really see it. They don't get their item drops from the raid. They go away and press their button and maybe they'll succeed their enhancement chance.
Well, it's also not any permanence to a group. So, like, for example, I'd be happier if somebody got something that helped me, or sorry, if this person was someone I played with all the time. But if they're not somebody I'm playing with all the time, then who gives a shit if they get something good? I don't know who they are.
And this removes a massive factor of what made MMOs the MMO genre for me. I feel like it's totally counterproductive and negative to feel relief in a video game compared to joy. So as soon as I realized that and associated what I was feeling while playing this game, it was pretty much lights out for my experience with Lost Ark. I realized that I love that long form progression, and the genre now is just turned vapid. It's just designed purely to give you incremental progress that will keep you hooked on a constant drip of dopamine. It seems like I
don't think it's that simple, because like a lot of games recently have had very long form progression that I'm sure Kira would say is garbage. I don't think long form progression is what really matters. Like, think about New World getting professions to plus 200 or something like that. Or like, you know, grinds in the Shadowlands. I don't know. I'll be right back. I take a piss. Sorry about that, boys. Okay, here we go. Not wrong exactly. So that's what I think. It's such a useless video. Grew older, doesn't enjoy games the same way I used to. Yeah, I think that's what it is with a lot of people too. Is that like there are a lot of these long form progression systems, but they're just they don't offer the same level of fulfillment that they did whenever we were younger. Wash your hands? No, I never do.
Genres moved from designing a game to be played year-round, because that's how they'd make their money from the subscription model, to just giving you constant good boy points for doing literally anything, so that maybe in the short term you'll give them more money so that you can get more good boy points. I also made a video a couple days ago reacting to a Reddit thread about someone's boyfriend being addicted to spending money in Lost Ark and rage spending €100 to buy things to try and progress in the game.
God,
a lot of people didn't seem to agree with me that rage or anger is an indicator for potential addiction issues, specifically when it comes to gambling. But in my experience, anger and in general negative feelings lower your ability to make good decisions. So then it's no surprise to me at all that a lot of games that house predatory microtransactions and RNG-based upgrade systems make the process of progression elicit negative emotions that can lead to anger, since then you are much more likely to pay money to try and skip the thing that is making you feel that way. I believe that this is why the systems rely on giving you lots of small, easy, incremental upgrades repeatedly to make you feel how good it is to see that progression constantly, and then they make it consistently harder and harder, so you're much more likely to just say fuck it and, you know, just swipe the problem away. It's frustrating, and I feel like this did not used to be the case. And while I can enjoy these games briefly, ultimately I'm going to notice where these cogs are turning and what they're trying to do to me, and I have to stop. Now that's probably a long section to talk about something as small as loot and gear progression, but it plays a large factor of why I've enjoyed this genre for over 20 years, and it serves as a small example of how the genre has been designed for the changing times of instant gratification and corporate monetization. To be honest, a lot of people play these games.
I just don't know. It was always the case. Yeah, I think it was kind of always the case, man. It was always like this. Am I wrong? Like, I feel like it was. I feel like the only reason, well, I think that the games objectively, if you go back and you play the games, and like, I don't know about Ultima Online. I think that I'm primarily talking about Classic WoW. Many of the games back in the day have the same type of bullshit. Yeah, they have the same type of bullshit. Rose-tinted goggles? Yeah, I think so too. Swiping was not possible 30 years ago? Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely not. Like, no. And that is something that's worse. Like, obviously it's something that's worse. But I don't think that this is something that, I think that the core fundamentals of the game haven't really changed that much. Like, it was like, it was just, you farmed constantly. Yeah, you farmed gold a long time ago. That was, I don't know. I just, like, nowadays, I don't really consider that like this is not like an element of quality to me. It's like, wow, it was so much better whenever you had to spend 10 hours a week farming resources. I'm sorry, but I don't give that the same level of value that maybe I used to.
For the power fantasy, they play these games for the escapism And when the whole escapism and power fantasy is tied to these mechanics that are just designed basically to make you do these things, yeah, it's just not anywhere near as good for me. And it isn't to say that Lost Ark doesn't have difficult, challenging, or fulfilling content either.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the
really
Legion
does.
raids.
Some of the Guardian raids can be challenging the first time you do them. The Abyss dungeons have mechanics that require you to pay attention and learn, or you're going to wipe your group. But the payoff for completing them feels, again, like just much more of the same. Just the incremental march towards the inevitable RNG gate for a couple of % increase in stats. And when I realized all of my playtime was working towards these percentage upgrades, that didn't fulfill me at all, and I was pretty down on the experience. Now on top,
I don't know. Like, I feel like what's really the difference between like the two-handed mace from like Might of Menethil and Dark Edge of Insanity? You know what I mean? Like, it's mainly a bigger number. And, like, yeah, I guess there's a few different effects, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, you're always chasing bigger numbers. Like, that's what the game has been forever. Like, what's the difference between the best weapon in Trial of the Crusader versus the best weapon in Ulduar for a two-handed warrior? It's the same thing. It's just a bigger number. Like, it's always been, like, it always has been just going for bigger numbers. It's not as fleeting. Yeah, that's all it is. Bigger number, better person. Exactly.
top of that, social features in the MMO genre are a sore spot. I feel like dungeon queues and instantly getting into groups with strangers are super, super convenient, and they have a place in games that are trying to appeal to the most people possible. I mean, that's why they exist. They respect your time as an individual, and they get you into the content as quickly as feasible. However, in almost all modern MMOs, it feels like most of the people you encounter in game could be replaced by NPCs, and you probably wouldn't even know. In fact, you'd probably have a better time. It feels like with older MMOs, they were designed first and foremost.
You'd probably have a better time with NPCs. You're right about that. I remember, like, I hope he's not still watching, but, like, I did the, I did, like, one of the dungeons in Endwalker whenever I did the media tour. And I went back and I did it with the trust system, and it was way better. Like, I played it with Rich. Like, it was way better doing it solo. I hate to say that, but, like, it was just so much better. Like, or they just did what they needed to do. It was not a big deal. Yeah, that's all there was to it. And so, like, I had that happen, number one. And, like, number two, like, New World didn't have a group finder system, and that game was fucking terrible. It was fucking awful having to run all the way over to the group, to the dungeon. Like, it was just garbage, man. So I'm not going to say that these things are, like, objectively good, because we literally just had New World come out without a lot of these convenience features, and everybody fucking hated it. That was just because of the orb zone? No, it was not. Because at the beginning, everybody had Genesis orbs, and everybody had the fucking Lazarus orbs, because we were getting them from the dungeons. Or, sorry, from the quests.
It's a social experience, and I don't feel like they are anymore. And back in the day, they used to use things like difficulty to accomplish this. Yes. Back then, even the leveling experience was difficult, and that was to incentivize you to group. A lot of games back then was designed with grouping in mind. You didn't get
I do think the like classic WoW leveling experience was, like, objectively, like, probably it was great. I loved it. It was an amazing experience. Like, there were some things about it that were bad. How, like, there were, like, quests. There was, like, a level 35 quest and a level 23 quest, stuff like that. And, like, you wouldn't know where to go sometimes. Like, yeah, some of that stuff sucked. But, like, overall, classic leveling as an experience, like, nowadays, I don't want to do it again because I've already done it, like, 2 or 3 times. But, like, the first and even the second time I did it, whenever I did it in classic, it was enjoyable. It really was. I liked it a lot. It was much more memorable than, let's say, Lost Ark leveling, or New World leveling, especially, or Final Fantasy leveling, for that matter.
Of experience for killing single creatures, you'd get lot 4 quests, and you could quest faster with more people.
Yeah.
Or you'd get more experience for killing harder enemies, so you'd group up and grind areas in things like Lineage and things like EverQuest.
Yeah.
This means that you are constantly interacting with people in a social game, in what I perceive as a social genre, as opposed to nowadays where they've removed all difficulty and with it most of that social aspect, and instead they give you a streamlined, almost single player experience as a default, not as an option, and they make it easy enough that it feels like you could fall asleep and still achieve victory. This is probably why most people quit during the leveling process in most modern MMOs, because it's just boring. It's the same thing.
It sure
There
is.
are no funny stories or social interactions to keep you going, which is what most of the good things about MMOs have always been.
And the thing is, like, Final Fantasy gets carried by the story. So, like, for example, people might, like, the leveling experience fundamentally with Final Fantasy is you just run around and talk to NPCs. There's no real challenge with a lot of the quests. Like, I never did a quest in Final Fantasy. It was, like, really hard. It's like, oh, man, I almost died to this quest. No, it just never happened. It's a formality. But the difference is that Final Fantasy does have a certain degree of good story to it, and so you can follow along with the story. Lost Ark had that because we did it on stream. If I did it solo, I think it would be fucking terrible, and I wouldn't have enjoyed it at all. WoW had it because just like the game itself was good, but like a game like New World, no story, and it was repetitive, shit game.
And this is, of course, to allow as many people as possible to actually play the game, and then they just stack the difficult content at endgame. And this is what people will say: to have fun in an MMO, it gets good after you played 100 hours, and that's usually after you've finished the leveling experience, which is weird considering that's actually part of the game, or at least it used to be. They essentially just turn it into a really long, boring tutorial in most circumstances.
Well, I think also a lot of players nowadays don't want the leveling experience to be part of the game. Like, they don't care. And even a game like New World, where a lot of the content, like, there's no rush to get to 60 in New World. You don't unlock anything else. There's just pirates with a 0 behind their number. Like, it doesn't even matter. It's the exact same thing. It's that, again, players are just way more goal-oriented now. And, like, you saw a bit of a departure from that with the Season of Mastery, for example. And we saw, like, people that were going and they were doing the Iron Man. And I think that there were a good amount of people that enjoyed doing the Iron Man, but really whenever you look at them in terms of the overall population of the game, it's still very, very small. Now, most people are just extremely goal-oriented.
And there are, of course, exceptions to this, and Final Fantasy XIV is one such exception, and you'll find that in many of these cases when you're talking about modern MMO design, that Final Fantasy does stand out above the rest in certain ways. The leveling in Final Fantasy XIV is not a tutorial, it's actually a vehicle to tell you the story, which is the main focus of the game. And I would go back to what I said at the start of the video.
But there's a lot of people that just buy the story skip in Final Fantasy because they don't give a shit about that either. Like, that happens with them too.
I think Final Fantasy XIV encompasses this. It's first and foremost an amazing JRPG with a fantastic story, as that is the focus, and then it just has MMO features added onto it, as opposed to being an MMO first and foremost. I feel like in older MMOs you could play mostly solo as a playstyle choice if you avoided the group content and the harder areas, but you wouldn't experience a lot of the game, and there were still people who did this and loved the game for what it was. I believe they were developed with the understanding that some people would play more and be better, so they would be able to do more stuff and experience more of the game. And new MMOs feel like they've been made so nobody gets left out. Everybody gets the same experience, which means nothing you do really matters truly until you get to the end. And even then, they're probably just going to give you...
Nothing you do truly matters until you get to the end. I mean, kind of. It's not a bad thing. I don't know. It's just, again, like, is it just, maybe it's just like me being jaded, but like there's just so few things in video games now, like especially in MMOs that are time-based, that I have any respect for. Like, for example, like somebody has, you know, like a bunch of, you know, like things they've like farmed out or whatever. Like you just played the game for a long time, right? Like it's just, it's not a big deal. It's okay, cool, right? Like there are like skill challenges. Like I think skill challenges do matter, right? Things like Necromancer, Ultimates in Final Fantasy, Hell Mode in Lost Ark, you know, soloing certain bosses, like that's really cool. But like somebody who farmed out something that took 1,000 hours, I mean, it's cool to see. It absolutely is cool to see, but it's not something that's going to make me like, it's not going to excite me to play the game.
weaker difficulties of things to the point where it trivializes content and doesn't make you really work for anything. Now, I'm not going to say this is the worst game design ever in terms of making it accessible to everybody, but I do think there is a solid point to be made about how something being difficult and fulfilling over a longer period of time does make the result much more desirable and just feel better overall to achieve. I mean, if we weren't looking for long form progression, we'd probably be playing short form progression games like ARPGs that have seasons or something like that. But instead, it feels like the MMO genre has transformed itself to try and appeal to that audience and left behind the longer form progression audience that originally populated these games. As someone who's met a lot of people, some of my best friends through playing
I think also whenever you look at like longer form progression, you have people now that are hitting, you know, like the end game in Lost Ark, like in terms of these like types of content. But the fact is, like, the amount of time that, like, this is how many hours I put into Lost Ark in just the month that it's been out, or 2 months, or how long it's been out. 728 hours. I can guarantee you that most people don't even play a game that long in 6 months. Right? Like, I have played the fuck out of this game. And so the fact is that, like, a lot of times people see the accomplishments that somebody makes in the game, like in Lost Ark, and they're like, wow, this person's insane. How did they do it so fast? It's like, well, they didn't. They just played the game 12 hours a day. So, like, you're looking at, like, what, like, somebody who plays, like, a 4-hour-a-day Andy is going to take, on average, let's say, 3 times longer to do something than 12-hour-a-day Andy. You know, but it's also not their job. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, right?
And bonded with people through playing these games.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I miss the game design that puts you in situations where helping people, recognizing them, having logical, meaningful reasons to interact with them would result in experiences that elevated the game to something that is unique to you as an individual. All of my best stories from gaming, the most memorable ones, revolve around things that happened with other people first and how that related to the game second. When removing that human element, most of your experiences become carbon copies of everyone else's. You're all on the same treadmill, following the same tight progression path that has been cultivated for you, and as soon as I realized...
I strongly agree with this. I think this is an incredible point. I totally fucking agree with this. Like, abso-fucking-lutely. And the reason why I agree with it is that, like, think about all the narratives that got created in Final Fantasy. Like, all of the narratives of all the different people that, like, you know, Dom and Sea Lion, Anubis, like, everybody, right? And, like, you know all of these people because it creates a better story in the game. I think that MMOs, like, the best thing that an MMO can do is give people reasons to interact with each other, like, outside of, like, just, like, hard requiring, you know, interaction to do anything in the game. And that's, I think, what the best part... Like, you think about Classic WoW. What were the best parts of Classic WoW? What were the memorable parts of Classic WoW? Almost every single one of them had to do with playing with other people. Like, they all... It wasn't like, oh, you know, like, this one thing that happened. It's like, I usually remember many more ways of other people that I'm interacting with. Like, you know, my guild. The, you know, Ozzy. Remember whenever I ninja looted the tier 2 helmet away from Ozzy? Do you guys remember that? And Ozzy should have won. Do you remember whenever I took the dagger, the Perdition's, whatever the fuck, away from grenades? And then everybody said it was rigged. A Jigsaw, a fucking advertised, right? Like, all of these people, Bodegro. Blowing to gold. Yeah, these were the things that really made the game memorable. And I think that Lost Ark, like, I hope that we have that a little bit with Legion raids. But it's hard. It's so hard to make a game like that, man. Like, it's so difficult. I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know how these developers can do this, man. Is because I think that, like, that kind of stuff was just, ooh, it was so good. Yeah, Crystal, like, yeah, there's, like, that, you know, there's a handful of people that we played with, like Assy, you know, the Mega Shields, right? And, like, you know, people that we know in the community, for sure. But it's not the same as it was in Classic WoW or in Final Fantasy. Palladini. Remember whenever Palladini stole McConnell's tier 2 helmet? That was a good day, wasn't it?
Parameters of that treadmill, I usually lose interest in the game fairly quickly. Now, maybe that is partly because of how people play these games now and how it's different, but again, I've noticed that even playing Classic WoW, Classic TBC, that the game design just makes you interact with more people. It just does. And of course, the feeling of back when you used to be on your own server and you'd see these people day in, day out, and you'd just have a friendly chat with them, and you'd eventually get to know them, and you'd know their guilds and things like that. It just felt...
But it's like a lot of that happened back in 2007. Because you want to know what Classic really was like? Want to buy Maraudon boost? I have 40 gold. Is there a mage? I can't get over there. Can I get a summon? Want to buy summon to Maraudon? And then mages are sorry. Let me make it more like a mage. Beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, 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 boop, 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 beep. And then, you know, there's somebody actually, you know, fucking playing the game on the other end, trying to talk to this bot. You know, that's really what it was. Like, it's like, it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy because whenever they encountered this same thing again, they did everything they could to avoid it. You see what I'm saying?
Much more connected, which is ultimately what MMOs were originally.
Yeah, it's like Lost Ark. Lost Ark, there's not a lot of... There's social interaction, but, like, the social interaction is, like, always just, like, stupid. Tukey! Where's Tukey? Is Tukey up? Tukey? Can somebody tell me where Tukey is? Where's Tukey? Is Tukey up? Where Tukey? Can somebody invite me to channel 1? I have a high item level. Somebody invite me to channel 1. Can somebody add me to their friends for the achievement? I need 3 friends. Can somebody be friends with me? Yeah, where's Tukey? That's it. That's all it is.
Chat rooms with a bunch of people from all over the world, and you then just had a game around it that you were playing as well. Maybe it's a case of they designed like this because it was the new cool thing that you could meet these people and you could be instantaneously in a world with people from all over the place and have this instant communication with hundreds and thousands of people. But I don't truly believe that needed to go away. I don't believe that you needed to start designing games around mostly being a solo player with just other people around you. And games like Black Desert Online are a perfect example of this, where most people just don't play the game on their own, which is definitely more accessible because you're not waiting for anybody to do anything. But at the same time, it feels much less like an MMO. And again, all these things aren't specifically bad.
I'm going to be really curious to see what happens with Ashes of Creation. Is that like a lot of, it's just grinding alone. Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to be really, really curious. It's going to be dead. Guys, it's going to be dead. The game is dead. Oh my God, guys. Dead game. Hey, does anybody else? Hey, dead game, guys. You're just like, wow, in Final Fantasy. Yeah, that's all there is to it. Listen, Ash is our last hope. There's always going to be another one. But, like, the fact is that, like, yeah, I mean, people are so excited about I think that the Riot game is going to have a lot of these same features. It's going to have a lot of the same stuff that, like, Lost Ark has and Final Fantasy has. I don't think that they're going to try to make it like a true, authentic MMO. I think Riot is doing what Blizzard used to do. Riot steals a good idea, and then they make it better. Oh, wow, this Overwatch and Counter-Strike thing is pretty cool. What if we took both of the games and we just stole everything from the games? Oh, wow, this is really cool. Oh, wow, this mod for Warcraft 3 is really nice. So you have, like, little guys, and they run around, and they shoot. Oh, okay, what if we stole this and made it better? Oh, look at that. Wow. Look, that thing is Overwatch a dead game? Yeah, that's because Blizzard killed it. Like, Overwatch fundamentally is a good game. Like, I think Overwatch is fundamentally a good game. I'm excited for Overwatch 2. So, anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, like, New World, I think that you can... I think the way that players interfaced with Classic WoW and the way that players interfaced with New World indicates that actually sometimes people don't give a shit about these kinds of things, and it was very, very much circumstantial around the time that they were released. And if you take the same game and you experience it again, it is not the same thing.
They're just bad for me. And this, of course, extends into the focus on daily content and the checklists that you have to do if you want to remain sort of caught up to the other people and do the content when it releases, which is definitely not important to everyone, but it is to me. The checklists in these games are getting longer, and the requirements more mundane and tedious in general, and the reasoning seems to be to try and make the option of paying much more appealing. I make good money. I make good money on YouTube, I'm not going to lie about that. And the idea of making alts in Lost Ark and repeating content that I'm not really enjoying, because like I said, it is quite vapid, it just doesn't appeal to me all too much. It's putting a dollar sign on your time, which is never a good feeling to have, because if I...
Well, it turns it into a commodity, and whenever it turns into that, it's the same with like what WoW tokens do. Like WoW tokens, one of the things that they do that's like actually really insidious and bad is that they turn every activity into the game into a commodity. Is that there's nothing that just simply exists for the sake of existing. It is now something that exists because it is a, this is like, I want to farm this out to get this many WoW tokens and make this much gold. And like everything is turned into a system. Everything is turned into a number. And it removes the, what's the word for it? Like it removes the authenticity of things. It removes the innocence of them. And it turns them into that. Like Lost Ark has the same problem with honing. Like honing gear, in my opinion, I think honing is fucking fun to watch. But fuck doing it. Like if I was honing off stream, I would just click this and I would be done and that's it. It's painful to watch. People love watching it.
Can earn money faster by making YouTube videos than I can by playing the game on my alts and then make progress that way. I'm probably just going to spend the money because, again, time is money, friend. Exactly. It didn't used to be like this, and of course I don't. And that's what happens.
Is it like whenever you can spend the money? Here's what the thing is: whenever you can spend the money, it is so easy for a person to say, "I make $25 an hour at my job." And I can spend $10 and save 5 hours. And then they do it. And then they do it because it is just simply more cost effective to do this. So, like, this will become the case even more and more and more. This happens with WoW. It happens whale mindset. No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of a whale mindset because there's a lot of people that just don't have a lot of time to play video games. And so whenever they are playing the video games, they want to invest their time into playing the kind of content that they want to play. And that's why they buy these skips. That's why they buy the advantages. That's why they buy the level boosts. What the fuck do you think they're buying them for? That's exactly it. Now, a lot of people just don't have the time to invest in that way, and that's what they do. And a lot of guys, like, you've got to keep in mind, like, yes, obviously, most people don't make $25 an hour, but there's a lot of people that do, and there's a lot of people that make way more than that, too. And those people just keep the games running. How do you prevent that from invalidating the progress of a casual player that's not spending money? And you want to know what my opinion is? You fucking can't. You cannot do that. You cannot have a world where some person who invests $100 does not diminish the accomplishment of a person who has the same thing that spent 100 hours. Because it's human nature. It's just simple fucking human nature. It's not going to happen. If everybody is a winner, nobody's a winner. If somebody can buy an advantage over you, you're not going to feel good about that. That's all there is to it.
Because of how it used to be. I feel that if I'm going to spend money on this, then I am contributing to the continuation of this. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy of you just reinforcing them. You're saying, make the game worse, and I'll give you money just so I can have fun with it, which is the position where a lot of people are that don't understand that this is what's going on. And
I think that's I don't think that's entirely true. I actually don't think that's entirely true. Because the reason why I don't think that's entirely true is because there are games that people would objectively say is better, all right? Think about this, right? Make the game worse. Is the Final Fantasy leveling and questing and the story experience bad? No, it's not, but people buy boosts to get through it. And it's the same thing with Classic WoW. Is that Classic WoW was a good game in a lot of ways, and the game was not, keep in mind, the game was not designed it was not designed with boosting in mind. Classic WoW was not designed with a pay-to-win structure in mind, but people created it. Because people will always commodify their time. That's just what's going to happen.
You buy one of these things and think, fuck it, it's just $15. you are contributing to them just making the game worse next patch so that they can sell you something else for $15. And the thing is, if you really enjoy the game, you might think that the juice is worth a squeeze, and maybe it is to you. But I really don't understand why people defend this, and I see it all the time on YouTube. I'll see it on this video as well. That Lost Ark's fine, Black Desert's fine, this game's fine, WoW's fine, and they defend it because they enjoy it. But the thing is, I think it's silly to defend this, because I think
it's silly too. The game's pay to win. Period. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. It can still be a fun game, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't take anything away from that. You can still play a game that's pay to win. Like, I think WoW is pay to win, right? With the WoW token, it absolutely is. Yeah, we all know this.
People would enjoy the games even more if they weren't designed this way. If they respected your time and didn't try to sell you things and didn't try to frustrate or inconvenience you into spending money, you'd have a better time. And I can't really help that this is how I feel.
It's like, it's impossible for me to know if that's actually true or not. Like, I genuinely don't know if that's true. And I know that might sound crazy, and let me tell you why I don't know if that's true. Is because New World doesn't have that, and it was fucking terrible. Classic WoW didn't have that, so players created it. They created it by buying gold. Like, Classic WoW had more gold buying and gold selling than any game that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it was awful because people immediately, as soon as they could do it, they started doing it. So why is it that, like, this is some kind of holy grail? It's this holy grail to achieve that somehow people try desperately to avoid. You see what I mean? Like, as people are talking, it's like you have to drag people kicking and screaming to the Holy Land. And I think that to a certain degree, there's truth to that. But, I mean, I don't know how much there is.
And this is how the genre makes me feel. It could be a doomer take. Maybe it's 100% my problem. Maybe I'm jaded and the genre's fine. And that's entirely understandable, but I truly don't think that's the case, at least not completely, maybe some percentage. I can't rule out that this isn't playing some factor, because I'm not 16 anymore, I'm not raiding Black Temple with the boys that I met on the server and having a real good time. I never will be again. But I have observed and felt how those games used to feel as a now 30-year-old man, and they still feel meaningful, they still feel like they were designed better, they still elicit emotions in me that I thought couldn't be by this genre anymore. I don't think this is entirely rose-tinted glasses or nostalgia. I played Classic TBC when it released, and despite having been there and done that on everything in the game because I loved it so much and I played every waking moment I possibly could, I still found the game to be designed in a way that gave me much more fulfillment and much more of a sense of progression than what these modern games do. And I've had that.
I didn't really feel that way with TBC. Like, I knew everything about the game. I just went in there and beat the fucking game. I just beat the game because it's easy. Yeah, because it's easy. Like, that's why. Yeah, it was easy. Gruul, though? Yeah, but, like, we just, like, I had already, you know, right, that I had beat Gruul whenever I did that video? And if you look at that video, I have the Shuriken, the throwing weapon from Gruul equipped to my character whenever I'm fighting him. Yeah, I don't feel good about that. I fuck it. It's easy. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, what boss did I feel good about beating? I remember Stargr on Mythic was like, but then people kept doing the mechanic wrong. Like, and it was just like, it's like, and then like with single, I feel like I only really gained fulfillment through accomplishing single player goals. I almost never really gained fulfillment through accomplishing multiplayer goals.
Exact same experience when I went back and played.
I failed Tempest Keep, yeah, but like, is there any doubt in your mind that I couldn't just join a guild that clears it every week? But I mean, really, is there any doubt in your mind that like I couldn't just join a guild that clears it? It's not hard. Like, it's not a hard raid. Like, yeah, but you didn't? Yeah, because it wasn't worth the time. Like, yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, yeah, it just simply wasn't because of who I am. No, like, a lot of people want to have somebody like me in their raid. I will show up, I will do the mechanics, I am vocal, I talk, I'm part of the group, I do what I need to do. And then after the raid, I don't cause, and I have, like, I am what a lot of people would consider in some ways, in this way at least, I am an ideal raider. I have zero drama. I have zero problems. I just play the fucking game. And that's it. And the thing is, this would not be a cap. If it was actually a cap, I wouldn't have had 15 years of rating experience to say it's not. Okay, like, yes, I was an asshole whenever they introduced parsing. Absolutely. But before that, there was a reason I got invited to all these good guilds. Yeah, and also, like, it's not about being delusional. Like, the idea that this is an accomplishment in the first place is ridiculous. Clearing 15-year-old content that's already been min-maxed over a decade ago is not hard in the first place. It was never hard to begin with. You just get 25 people together that know what they're doing, that they follow directions and play well, and you're going to get it done. Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Ultima, when I played EverQuest, when I played any of these older games, they just feel like they respected my time more. They feel like they were designed to be played for longer periods of time, and they didn't feel like
how can you say EverQuest respects your time whenever you don't you lose like hours of experience whenever you die? Like, I'll tell you one thing, like, if that happened to me, I'd just immediately quit. Like, that doesn't respect my time at all. Like, I said, fuck that. Respect my time, just don't die. Fuck that, just don't play. Like, man. Nope.
they were forcing
you get DC'd, you get distracted, you have a computer update. Shit can happen outside of your control. Yeah, I want to say, it's like, I've always felt like, and I've made this very clear before, is like any game that gives you backwards progression, I automatically hate. Because it makes me, like, video games, whenever I feel like a game is wasting my time, I think about PoE, and I quit PoE every league for that reason. I come back because it's such a great game. I get to like 96. I die because there's some fucking like quadruple affix. And like, to be honest, I probably wasn't paying attention that well anyway. I'm doing a map I shouldn't have. I take a risk. I die. And that's it. Yeah, and then I quit. I quit for this map reflect. Yep. Or I fuck up serious or something like that. Like, it's also like a lot of the time is personal error.
To do things I didn't really enjoy just so they could try and make me spend more money. I played those games for so many hours because I was having fun, not because I felt a compulsion to complete dailies. And why I was having fun is because I was playing with other people, whereas a lot of these games now, you're playing by yourself, and I can't help but feel, why would I
think the best example of this being true is Final Fantasy, because people log on to Final Fantasy because they have an FC that they get along with really well. They have a group of people that they play with, and they really like those people. That's what's enjoyable. That's what they like doing. And it like doesn't matter about the content. It's the same reason. Do you know the one server that actually is the most resistant to content droughts in WoW? Moonguard. Moonguard is the most resistant, and even whenever there's a content drought and nobody gives a shit about the game, the players are still running around doing the same shit because the content is not the release schedule. It is the players, and the players matter more than anything else. So yeah, I think this is true, absolutely.
Play an MMORPG that's making me do a checklist of tasks by myself when I could just go play a single player game that doesn't do that and gives me a much better experience. This is why when, again, I will keep saying it, when Classic Burning Crusade came out, I was playing the game for 16 hours a day, and every single minute I was playing with other people in Discord. I was having fun, I was talking to people, I was getting to know people. And that's not to say I couldn't force myself to be social in newer MMOs. It's just that because the game's not designed around doing that, there's less stuff to do.
You don't have to do it. In my opinion, I think that if you want players to be social, this is what I was saying about dragging them kicking and screaming to the Holy Land, the Promised Land, is the fact that if you don't make it necessary, it's just not going to happen. Like, why would somebody interact with someone and willingly take more time to do an activity in the game whenever they could just do it solo? And that's just what happens. Like, and like, again, there are going to be exceptions, but they are what they are. They are exceptions. They are not the norm. That's why No Dungeon Finder was great. Yeah, but everybody hated New World, and people in classic WoW just grouped with their friends and never did dungeons outside of that. So I don't think No Dungeon Finder was some sort of like was a good thing for New World. I don't think so at all.
people doing it, and it just doesn't feel the same. Now, this whole video again isn't to say that the new games can't be good. I think that some of them really are. I super enjoy Final Fantasy XIV for totally different reasons. I don't enjoy the game as an MMORPG. I enjoy it as a story game that has some social features tacked onto the side. I enjoy games like Black Desert Online for their ability to turn my brain into a television that's been left on standby mode and just forget about the world while I mindlessly press buttons without a single conscious thought. I enjoy the
Yeah, it's about right, dude. I used to play, dude, that was the best thing. Like, I love that, being able to just turn off your brain and grind, man. Somebody said, there was a three-headed chat that said, so LFR is good. I think I don't care about LFR except for the fact that it gives gear. If LFR didn't give gear, I wouldn't care. The worst thing that LFR does is not show players the story. I don't give a fuck about that. Like, who cares? LFR is bad because it invalidates all the previous tiers of gear with just more better gear that's more easily accessible. That's what the problem. Then LFR won't get played? Well, then you're admitting that nobody cares about the story then. And there's no reason for it to exist. I know that LFR would never exist if there wasn't a gear attached to it. And that's why it sucks. That's why it's useless. True.
An MMO experience for different reasons, but the genre is not what it used to be for me, and since this is the one genre that requires the most money and the time to create, I don't have a lot of optimism for it ever being like that again. The money follows the casual audience so they can reach the biggest market possible, understandably so, with the risks associated with making a game on the scale that these games require. But that means they're going to follow these same design philosophies, and that means pay to win is a given at the expense of the core enjoyment of the game. That means as many systems as possible that are designed to drip feed you incremental progression to keep you interested until they've got their hooks in you, and waste as much of your time as possible until you're playing for the compulsion of it versus the enjoyment of it. Now, I might be totally alone in a lot of what I've said here, but I feel that I truly do think the genre has changed into something I don't really recognize. It isn't the place I envisioned we would be all those years ago, when my guild in whatever game I was playing would talk about how cool it would be in the future.
I don't think that I think that's true. Yeah, I don't think I expected this to happen either whenever I was younger. I didn't at all. 5-hour intro? No, it'll only be probably about a 4.5-hour intro, and then I'll do a little bit of stuff. Like, I've got some, I'm gonna cut more stones today, guys. Like, I feel like I'm getting a 7.7.2 today. I'm gonna cut more stones, do some upgrades, get some help. Why? Well, I don't need help. I just need to get the right clicks. That's it. I'm done after that.
New games released with new technology, new ideas and innovation. Maybe that's a failure on my expectations and not the genre. Maybe I failed to recognize that this was the natural progression that this is where everyone else wanted to be. I recognize I don't have the answers here, and it's possible that whatever game would be designed ideally for me wouldn't be popular in 2022, but it makes perfect sense to me to look at a game like World of Warcraft and see that over time, as the game lost what made it feel fulfilling and socially enjoyable, it also lost the majority of its player base, trading meaningful progression for good boy point simulator and doing the same content on multiple.
It just sucked. Like, that's why the game got worse, is it just, the content in the game sucked. The open world content became formulaic. Like, every single patch ever since Timeless Isle, Blizzard has just tried to release Timeless Isle again. That's all it was. Yeah, that's all it's been the whole time. And then the exception to that was, obviously, I think 8.2 was really good. But besides that, all of the other ones are just the same fucking bullshit, man. It's awful. And Lich King made a bitch, still pissed? Yeah, I'm still pissed about that too. And like, just overall, it's just, I think people are tired of the same old shit. But overall, MMOs are good games because you get to play them with other people. And if you can't play them with other people, they're not that great. I think that's just in general what it is. Like, the core gameplay of most of these MMOs is just simply not as good as Elden Ring. It's just fucking not. And I think that there's many single player games like that, right? And so you have to give people a reason to play with other people, but it's like this like super delicate balancing act that most games do wrong.
Difficulties, making you have zero identity within the world you're playing due to the cross-realm features, and making paying for a boost for content completion a constant in-your-face reminder that nothing you do matters anymore, has, in my opinion, made the game drastically less enjoyable, and the playing numbers accurately reflect that. I use World of Warcraft as an example quite a lot, pretty much all the time actually, because I've played and loved that game for over half my life, and it is the perfect example of seeing that shift in game design from what it was then to what it is now. The novelty didn't wear off and make the majority of those people quit the most popular MMO ever made. No, they designed it into being a short-form dose of entertainment, a McDonald's burger of fulfillment in a mall food court surrounded by other fast food that you could easily have instead, giving you almost a one-to-one interchangeable experience.
Yeah.
The only reason to hold on is the thought that maybe one day it can return to the state it once was in when most people were playing and the game was good. That's how I feel. And it isn't like all the games are bad, because again, I don't think they are. They're just not good MMORPGs, at least in how it was originally. Maybe they're good MMOs by today's standards of what the word means to people, and maybe I'm just old. There are, of course, glimpses of it here and there, and for people who are new to the genre who didn't...
I think a lot of it is being old. I think that more than anything, that's the biggest factor. It is, and I've seen that, like, I've become more and more certain of that after every single game comes out. And I see, like, OSRS is one game that I kind of have a blind spot on because I just don't understand the game that well because I haven't played it as much. But I know that for many of these other games, like, it, it's kind of the same thing.
Experience the things I've touched upon in this video, they're probably still great, but for a lot of us, they just remind us of what we consider to have been better. I don't begrudge anybody having an enjoyable experience. That's what gaming's for, and I'm not bitter about it. I can talk about it until I'm blue in the face, and I do still enjoy these games. It's not like I'm quitting MMOs. You know, don't get crazy about it. I'm still going to play all the new ones. I'm still going to go back and play WoW with a new expansion.
And disillusioned.
God damn it, why am I doing that to myself? And I hope everyone truly enjoys the games they play, and if you do, my opinion shouldn't matter to you. I just, use it as food for thought, and maybe you'll notice some of these things as well. I hope not, because that might ruin it for you, but there you go. You enjoy what you enjoy, that's what matters. I do look at the genre right now, what we have versus what we started with, and wonder if you couldn't have been having even more fun if we were closer to that in design. Then again, maybe this is exactly what people want nowadays, and that's just a me problem. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe out there. We're out. Peace.
Oh man, I just, oh my god, like, this video went on for a while, and I think it probably doubled. Like, the thing is, these videos, like, I talk about this shit all the time, bro. Like, I literally cannot stop talking about this shit, because it's like, I think constantly about, like, what was it that was different then that it isn't different now? Like, what was it that changed? How did the world change? Like, what is this? It's a depressing video, it's an exhausting video, yeah, but it's just that I had to talk about it because I just wanted to, because it was something that I think about all the time, man. Like, I think about this shit all the fucking time, about, like, responsibilities. And it's like it's just the whole world that we're in and everything. I don't know. It's an important topic, yeah. Like, there's just so much of it. Games have been too gamified. Yeah, but, like, the thing is, like, whenever a game, like, diverges from that, like, I'm waiting. Listen, guys, I'm going to be honest. Like, I am waiting for the MMO to come out that breaks this mold, but the reason why I'm concerned about it is that players will always do the same thing. Players will always make the game worse. And I've gotten to the point now where I no longer, and this is like kind of like, so you go through like a few phases, right? And like, it's like you go through the phase where you're excited for the next one. Oh, the next one's gonna bring it back. Oh, it's gonna be so good. And then it comes out and it's not. And it's actually worse than it was worse than your worst case scenario. Sometimes it's worse. It's the next one. Oh my god, it's the next one. Ooh. And then the next one never comes. And that's always what happens. And this happens constantly, every single time. Time and time and time and time again. It happens. And eventually, I thought that was going to happen with Classic WoW. I was wrong. I thought that was going to happen with New World to a lesser extent, a much lesser extent. I was also wrong. And I think that emotionally I was wrong, not even mentally. Because I told you guys that Classic WoW wasn't going to last. Nobody believed me, and, it didn't. So that's what it was. And what I'm saying here is this, is that these games are, like, it's just, Like, and then I got depressed, and I was like, every game is bad. There's something wrong with every game. I hate every game. Games suck now. And now I feel like this. I feel like I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter to me anymore whether the game is like... I simply play it for the experience, and the moment that the experience becomes non-enjoyable, I am simply done with the game. I don't play it anymore. And that's it. I don't attach myself and my emotions to the quality or the direction of a game. If like I play a game like Valheim, and I enjoy it so much. I love the game so much. It's so great. And then I finished the game, and that, you know, it was so fun. I had so much fun. It was great. Like I'm happy, right? I wish they make more content, but it's just that I don't care anymore, and it's in a good way. I don't care in a good way anymore. I'm just relaxed about it.